This is Lisa with Laboo Sewing Center, and today we are going to be cutting craft vinyl. We are first going to retrieve the file from our USB. And from there we've got, of course, the multiple pages. We're going to use the F that was created. Hit OK to set that to the machine. The place that I'm going to be moving this, we need to shrink that file just a little bit. So first thing that I'm going to do is edit that down. So I'm going to resize, and I want that to be right around 2 3/4 inch. And I'm going to cut 2 of those. So I'm going to multiply that out. So I have 2. And put 1 on each of these pieces. So I have 2 pieces of craft vinyl on the mat. Next thing that I need to do is scan my mat so that I can see where to place those exactly. I've got them pretty close. So I'm going to go ahead and scan that. I have a standard mat loaded into the machine. I could be using a low-tack mat. Either one will work. If I'm using the standard, you don't want to push super hard on the adhering of that craft vinyl because you want to make sure that it is going to come back up. So I'm just going to go ahead and center my 2 files over those squares so that it's pretty much as in center. It doesn't have to be exact because it's going to be using that excess as we go. Once I have that, I can move forward and tell it that I would like to cut those files. So these are going to go on the outside, so I do not need to mirror image those. If I did, we would have needed to do that back on that editing screen. So here we are, we've told the machine that I want to cut. My pressure is at 2. I've had that blade in the machine for a little bit, so I know I need to give it a little bit of extra oomph because it's gotten just a little bit dull. My speed is at 3. That is just my personal preference. I don't cut at full speed. My half cut is on. That is very important. We are cutting vinyl, and so we only want to cut through the colored portion of what is on our mat. So we do want to make sure that that is on. If that is not on when you turn this to this page on your machine, you're going to need to hit that wrench, page down to page 2, and right there across the top you will turn that from off and then hit the on button right there. And there is that half cut pressure. As you can see, I have that bumped up to 2. I don't need a weeding box because I already have smaller pieces of vinyl on my mat. If I was using a large piece, I could go ahead and activate that weeding box, which would give me a smaller piece to work with. I'm going to go ahead and OK to exit my settings, and now I am ready to cut. So once I have everything set, we're going to go ahead and hit that start. The blade carriage is going to come across and test. We have our vinyl blade in, which has got that light blue top right here. It tests on the vinyl, and that is how we get the correct setting for our blade depth. And it's going to go ahead and cut that first one over there. Our total cut time on this is only 2 minutes or less, so we don't have a very long cut on this process here. We've got the first one coming up unfinished already. Just be a few more moments. Once we have the cuts made, the next thing that we need to do is weed that. So you can see that everything is cut nice and clean. We're going to go ahead and take that corner. So I stab that into the corner, and I just need to get a little bit and give it a twist. So I want to try to make sure that I haven't gone all the way through. And by giving that twist, it picks up that top color, and then I can gently peel that back. And I want to work around nice and gently. I don't want to go too fast because then I tend to pick up parts of the sticker that I want left down. And basically that is what we're doing. We are creating a sticker that is in the shape of whatever that cut is. So we've got an F here. And all we have now, just going to fold that in on itself, is the little pieces that are in the inside. So we can either use our pick or sometimes I do just use my fingernail by bending at those cut points and pulling out those little excess pieces. Just depends on whatever is easiest. What you don't want to do is you don't want to puncture anything that is parts that you are keeping. So sometimes the tip of your tool is going to be a little too big, and it's actually going to mar the part that you want to keep. So you just want to be really gentle and make sure that that is not happening. So sometimes your fingernail will actually work better than your picking tool. Got one more little piece up here. So this would be your typical weeding process for using a craft vinyl. So we've got the sticker created in the shape that we wanted to place it on something, whatever it happens to be. In this case, I'm just using a small candle holder, and I would be placing that vinyl on there in whatever decorative place you would like. This is the Brother transfer paper. You just need to get that off. I do have a small square cut. I don't have a large 12-inch piece. You don't want to have a piece a whole lot larger than what you're working with, because it makes it harder to manage. You can imagine if this were a big 12-inch piece, how much sticky I would be trying to keep a hold of. So you can use the grid lines to try to line up so that you have some sort of a line. And what you want to do is then press this in. So you can use your fingertips. You can also use the scraper tool. So this is where I really like to use this and rub that item right into that transfer paper. So what we are wanting to do is getting it to stick to the top piece instead of that waxy back paper. And then when we peel it off, our hope is that it's going to come up with the transfer paper and no longer stick to that back. If it's sticking somewhere back here, we would simply go back and rub in whatever place that it is sticking to. Once we have that, we will get our item that we are transferring to. And first thing that you want to do is eyeball, so you don't ever want to just stick. It does stick pretty well, pretty quickly. Once you have it in place and in position, you're going to rub again. So again, you can use your scraper if you have one available to you. It does come in the toolkit, or they are available separately. We sell them here at the shop for only, I think, around $10. I think it's $9.99. It might be slightly more, but something in that vicinity. And then you're going to simply remove again. And as long as you have scraped pretty well, it should stick to whatever you are adhering to instead of the transfer paper. If you get some spot that has not, simply rub back over top of that like I just did and peel up. So there you have your piece that has been changed onto. Now, when we do glass etching, we could leave that on and etch everywhere around it and then peel that off, and that would be the non-etched part. But what we are looking for is to etch the shape of the F itself, or whatever letter it is that you're looking for. So this time around, I actually want to remove the F and the swirl around it and leave all of those parts. So if I wanted to, I could use the F that I've taken out and place that on something else as well. It's a little bit harder without transfer paper, but I certainly could attempt to get that as smooth as possible and place that on some sort of glassware. As you can see, especially with those swirls, it is not the easiest thing to do, but we could attempt to place that. Very difficult to do both, but we have this piece left over. So what I need now is I need that transfer paper. Sometimes you can reuse those multiple times. Sometimes they don't work as well once they have been used. As long as you don't have any big rips in them, you should be okay. The main thing is we need to get the area that we don't have spots that have no vinyl. We want to make sure that that's covered. The things that we're looking for is to get all of the tiny pieces that make that swirl shape take form. We want to make sure that those have a very good adherence to that transfer paper for wherever it is that we're going. And the reason is that without those little bits in place, we won't have a good shape when we go to do that etching. So now we're going to peel up. And again, we want to make sure we get all of the little pieces on there as well. So this time around, we need to put that whole piece in place. So what we're going to do is position that whole piece, rub, making sure that we get all of those tiny pieces to stick without any movement. And then we can peel off our transfer. Again, we need to make sure that all of those little bits are right where they're supposed to be and they stay put. That's the important piece. If they're not staying, then we need to press a little bit more. So I'm going to use my scraper again and make sure that I have all of that down as securely as possible. And what I'm looking for again is that the rest of that will stay. So what we're using is what's called the negative of our cut. And we're going to basically stencil nice and easy there. Sorry, I'm a little off camera. And again, if you have a place that's not sticking, you're just going to press again. Make sure that you get a nice, good seal. You have to go nice and slow. Don't rush this part. You want to make sure nothing is coming off that needs to stay in place. So when we apply our etching cream, we're going to apply it everywhere that there is an opening in there. So now we have our negative in place and we have everything ready to etch. Once you have your stencil applied to your glass, depending upon how large your exterior piece is, you may want to give yourself a little bit more wiggle room. So you can see I have an area that's pretty close to the edge here, so I'm simply going to apply some tape so that I have a little bit more of an area so I don't get any etching cream on the glass there. I'm just going to basically make the stencil itself a little bit larger so that I don't have anything directly placing on that area. Once I have that, I am going to go ahead and use the Armor Etch cleaning glass etching cream. The directions for that are right on the back. It's very, very simple. We're simply going to apply that, leave it on for 1 to 3 minutes, pat past that, it really does not help it get any better of an etching or anything. And then we're going to rinse that using water and then remove the stencil. So I do have a brush. You can use foam brushes. You can use pretty much anything. I don't recommend using your fingers. And you're going to get that everywhere inside that stencil. You don't want to get it anywhere outside the stencil. And try to keep it nice and smooth. I did shake the jar before I opened it so that I have a nice and smooth product inside. I don't want to have anything goopy. If you have chunks, you will get chunks of spots that look a little bit darker or different inside the stencil. So you want to try to avoid that. And we simply want to have that as smooth as possible and fill that whole area in with that cream. Once we have that everywhere, we're going to go ahead and give ourselves a timer. And let that set. I've moved us to the sink and I have rinsed off my brush just using water, so I've gotten all of that cream out there so I can reuse that. And we are just going to go ahead and turn on the water. We're going to rinse that cream off using our fingers. We're going to just go ahead and rinse. Once we have that off, we're going to go ahead and remove the stencil. So you can see there is that really beautiful frosted look in there where we have had the stencil there, and where the cream was at, there is that nice edging. Let's remove those interiors. And try to get that lighting right so you guys can see that in the super hard. Get the dark behind us again and see if we can show you that better. So we're back over at the work table, and I have the black backing behind my frame, and I can get off the rest of our stencil, and you can see much clearer now between the light up top and the black background, the frosted edges. So much easier to see here. You can see that is super frosted right there. It is so easy to etch glass, but it gives you such a pretty final look. This is machine washable. You can put this right in the dishwasher. So you can do some beautiful glassware. They make a beautiful gift of a set of glasses that you could monogram. I did these as Christmas gifts one year for my aunts and uncles and my parents, my in-laws, and I did their last name, initial, and you can see that, you know, wiping doesn't do anything. That is absolutely there. Dishwasher will not make any difference, and it just makes an absolutely beautiful addition to some glassware. So that is the simplicity and the beauty of glass etching.